Chapter 7. Take 3 sequences and call in the morning. Calibration ID number 0. Training data begins. What happened next transcended dreams, fantasies, or memories. It was like suddenly changing the channel on life. In the blink of an eye, Marcus was standing in a moonlit meadow. The outline of mountain peaks towered over him, while a shadow rolled across the landscape before dissolving. He peered down at his body, and the suit was gone, replaced by the outfit he'd left in his locker. Marcus was astounded by the ethereal scene and reminded himself this was all fake, though it was difficult to be sure. A soft breeze blew as he took in the panoramic view. Thousands of stars glimmered above him. The sky hadn't looked this empty since the Federation arrived. He was isolated, feeling like there wasn't another person anywhere in the world. Marcus closed his eyes, turned his head upward, took a big breath in through his nose, and exhaled through his mouth. The damp air even tasted real. Calibration ID number 0. Training data ends. When he opened his eyes, he was back in the Liberty Bell, hovering. Brad was ecstatic. Perfect! Marcus couldn't think of anything in particular that he'd done, but before he could speak, Brad continued. We lose a lot of people at this point. They can't handle knowing it isn't real and mentally melt. You did more than you realize. Now, as my grandmother says, drink while the water's running. Calibration ID number 1. Training data begins. In another instant, Marcus found himself struggling to balance on a thin log 40 feet above a small river of raging whitewater. Terror seized him as he sized up the situation. There's no way the log can hold this much weight, Marcus thought. The roar of the river echoed through the surrounding pine-topped ravine at a deafening volume. His arms stretched skyward, holding an equally parsimonious set of branches at their terminus. The goal is to get to the other side, using your desire not to fall, Brad coached. The desire was proving powerful since Marcus had a genuine fear of heights. Even though he'd grown up at a ski resort, he shied away from similar situations, because the fear made it difficult to breathe. He remembered laughing during scenes like this in a movie when a protagonist would recite some mantra to calm down, but now Marcus locked on to something his therapist Garrett taught him. Just keep breathing. He recited this as he let go of the branches and began teetering across the log. His movements were small at first, each inch having to be won in an intense struggle of balance over fear. But soon he picked up the pace. He realized that with only a few key muscles and steady airflow, he had superior control and more focus. As he neared the other side, Marcus was momentarily distracted and lost his footing. He grabbed desperately at the thin log but missed it. He was falling fast. Marcus closed his eyes and waited for the inevitable. But it never came. Calibration ID number 1. Training data ends. Calibration ID number 2. Training data begins. When he braved to look again, he was standing alone at a gun range. Welcome to weapons training, Brad proclaimed. This was going to be easier than the log, Marcus said to himself. Like most of his generation, he was familiar with guns from Lethal Enforcer-type video games, but he had the additional benefit of growing up in a home where real firearms were readily available. This exercise will test your physical, emotional, and mental capabilities, said Brad. Pick any weapon from the wall, load it, then put 2 rounds on the target. Downrange was a cardboard silhouette, an effigy of evil. As Marcus scanned the selection of weapons, he found a highly customized AR-15. It resembled one his father had owned. This weapon was the civilian variant of the military power horse, and it was Marcus's favorite because it had a different personality than other guns. He inspected the rifle, checking it was on safe and unloaded with an empty chamber, all without placing his finger on the trigger or pointing the barrel at anything he didn't plan to destroy. Once he knew the weapon was safe, he took his position at the end of the firing lane, loaded a magazine, and chambered a round. Marcus knew what to do next. Square up to the target, scan the foreground and background to ensure it was clear to engage, raise the weapon to shoulder height, press his face against the stock, and align his sights on the enemy. If you're to this point, Marcus could hear his father saying, you better mean it. The warning was for a good reason. Once he disengaged the safety, only 5 pounds of trigger pressure separated life from death. Marcus took a deep breath and squeezed the trigger during a lull in his exhale. When the gun fired, a wave of pure power pulsed through his body. The surrounding air was violently pushed away, and adrenaline surged through his veins, temporarily distracting him from the ringing pain in his ears. He'd been so focused on the weapon he forgot to wear hearing protection. Marcus engaged the safety and set the rifle down with the business end facing the target. He'd made a perfect headshot. He reviewed the remaining cache of weapons, realizing why he'd failed to remember ear and eye protection. There wasn't any available. Knowing he was ill-prepared made his second shot difficult, since his mind and body would anticipate the coming chaos. The trigger would drop the hammer, driving the firing pin into the primer, starting a fire inside the brass casing, and forcing the bullet down the rifling of the barrel as the round propelled toward its final destination. Understanding these details did nothing to help him keep calm. It was mind over matter now. He lifted the rifle again and took a series of even deeper breaths, disengaged the safety, and, ignoring what was to come in favor of what was immediately before him, pulled the trigger. The resulting force was even more painful, and Brad made it worse by screaming like a rabid sports fan. Boom! Marcus put the gun on safe again and stared at the silhouette. The two rounds were on top of each other, the modern equivalent of Robin Hood splitting an arrow with another arrow. Calibration ID number 2. Training data ends. The gun range dissolved around him, exposing the iron-red glow of the experimental chamber. The change of station from one world to the next was becoming more disjointed with each jump between sequences. Still doing great. Your data looks equally awesome. Up for more? Brad asked. Yes. Want to level up? Sure. Atta boy! Quick note, this next sequence might feel like living inside of a moving blur. Like a dream? Marcus asked. Possibly. You'll be someone else with recollections of other people, places, situations, and skills. It will feel very familiar and very, very real. That's intentional, since we're using some of your own memories to create the setting of the sequence. But you might also remember who you are, and your real-life memories, causing your brain to fight itself. This is a transitionary experience to test if you're ready for stealth mode. Realer than the last few? Immeasurably. For the majority of your form, this experience feels so real it completely distracts from actual reality and dissolves your identity momentarily. Am I going to remember this one? Just like the last. For this one, you'll be driving up Provo Canyon. Toward the dam? No, you'll be driving to the Sundance Ski Resort. Marcus had done this thousands of times. This would be cake, he thought. Pump the hubris brakes. There's a catch. It's set in 1985 and you'll be in a VW Beetle that's already archaic by that year. Okay. With no power steering. I can handle it, Marcus assured, in a snowstorm. The details of this memory weren't immediately familiar to Marcus, but the set and setting meant it couldn't have been one of his own lived experiences. Here we go, said Brad. Calibration ID number 3. Training data begins. The last thing Marcus remembered. He'd just passed Bridal Veil Falls. In the early morning light, he couldn't tell if it was still frozen enough for ice climbing. Either way, that'll have to wait for another day, Marcus thought while gripping his steering wheel. The old car struggled on the slushy 2-lane mountain highway, but it had survived the worst of the winter. This spring storm was unexceptional. He was finishing his first season as a lift operator at the ski resort, a job he loved because it took him into his canyon 6 days a week. It also meant he could get stuck in his car, so he'd converted the back seat into a bedroom. The front trunk was equally cram-packed with his outdoor gear. Once summer arrived, he'd finished training as a paramedic and spend all his free time fishing in the river that ran parallel to the road. The most popular spot, and one frequented by other fishermen, was a blind curve just coming into view. As the highway completed a set of preemptive zigzags, he slammed on the brakes to avoid hitting a line of cars parked in the middle of the pavement. In addition to killer fishing, this was an accident hotspot. A group of 24 people stood in the roadway beyond the vehicles. Marcus stepped out of his car, slipping on the slushy snow before falling flat on his face. He was unhurt, and cautiously made his way to the crowd. Everyone was inspecting the empty bend in the road. "What are we looking at?" Marcus asked a man whose face silently screamed of shock. He didn't answer. "Everyone needs to get out of the road. Even this early in the morning, there's going to be down canyon traffic from the dam," Marcus warned. "The second a vehicle comes around that bend, we're dead meat." The crowd ignored him. "Hello?" Marcus persisted. Someone finally responded. "There was an accident around the corner." "Is someone helping them?" Marcus asked. He was met by renewed silence. He scanned the bystanders, which included some of his co-workers. "Has anyone gone for help?" Marcus was losing patience. No one said a thing. "If anyone has a CB radio, call for help." Marcus jogged back to his car, where he found his girlfriend and co-worker, Beth, had just arrived. Why is traffic stopped? Another accident? They need to tunnel through the mountain already. I hope someone just slid out and it's not more serious. Marcus dove into his trunk and retrieved a small first aid kit. I don't know. No one's helping, so I'm going to see what I can do. Want to come? Absolutely. The pair pushed past the crowd and rounded the blind spot to find a scene of pure horror. A semi traveling up canyon had struck an international Scout, a Jeep competitor designed for rough roads. The head-on collision threw the Scout backward onto the steep mountainside shoulder and sent the semi into the river, where it sat perfectly upright, water racing beneath it. The driver was standing on his roof and waved frantically to Marcus and Beth. The smell of gas and blood was overwhelming. Flames burned in patches across the slushy ground, making for surreal surroundings. In the middle of the road laid a decapitated woman, and what Marcus presumed were her 2 children. Both boys appeared to be alive and barely moving. They ran to the older of the 2 since he was closest. The boy looked to be about 8 years old, and was slipping in and out of consciousness. He was surrounded by a dark halo of blood, while more surged from his forehead. As Marcus repositioned him to apply a compress to control the bleeding, he discovered another gushing wound on the back of the boy's head. He covered both sides with his hands and gently squeezed, causing the child to lurch. Marcus could feel the problem, and motioned for Beth to come closer so he could whisper, "There's a big rock embedded in the middle of his forehead. I need to distribute pressure around the wound, and this compress is already soaked. In the back seat of my car are clothes, pillows, and a blanket. Grab as much as you can. Once we get this kid in better shape, we'll check on his younger brother." Beth departed, and Marcus felt deep gratitude for having such a reliable partner in this moment of crisis. He turned back to the child and started talking in an attempt to keep him awake. "It's just you and me now, kid. Can you hear me?" The child was motionless again. "Kid? Can you hear me? Wake up, kid, come on!" The moments dragged on, and doubt in his ability to save the child was building. "Please, God, don't let this kid die on me, kid! Wake up! Just for a second, tell me your name so I don't have to keep calling you kid. Come on! Wake up!" Marcus saw movement in his peripheral vision. The truck driver emerged from the icy river and rushed toward Marcus to offer assistance. "Put me to work." "Did you call for help from your radio?" "I couldn't. Everything in the cab got fried when I hit the river. Has anyone gone for help yet? It's 45 minutes each way." "We don't know. How long ago did this happen?" "I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. Could have been 20 minutes, 10 maybe. I can't be positive." "What's your name?" "Jerry." "Hi, Jerry. I'm Marcus. My girlfriend Beth just went to get more supplies. I've got this kid as best I can. His brother is over." Before he could finish, the younger child shrieked at the sight of his headless mother. "I'm on it, boss." Jerry ran to cover the mother's body with his jacket and removed his shirt to conceal her head. He turned the child around to stare out at the river, then shouted back at Marcus, "It's a miracle, but he's fine. I can't find a scratch on him." Beth appeared around the corner with an older woman and a young man. She'd motivated the crowd in a way Marcus couldn't, and another wave of gratitude came over him. Beth distributed blankets to Jerry and the young child, while the woman and his co-worker helped Marcus get the older brother's head resting on a towel atop a pillow. "I'm Marcus. You've met Beth, and that's Jerry. What are your names?" "I'm Margaret." "I'm Kyle. Kyle, can you hold this other pillow on his forehead? You have to make a gap between your hands because there's a rock in there, and you don't want to push it. You have to go around it, okay?" "Roger, roger." "Margaret," Marcus said, "will you keep talking to Kyle and this kid? Keep them up and focused. I'm going to go check the car." "I can do that," she replied. Marcus grabbed his first aid kit and started climbing the snowbank toward the Scout. The front was smashed in like an accordion. When he reached the vehicle, he could see the father was pinned to his seat by the dash. It had crushed his ribs. Blood was oozing from his mouth as he murmured incoherently. Marcus couldn't do anything for internal injuries, and moved on to the back of the vehicle where 2 more older boys sat, dazed. They were covered in scratches from broken glass, but otherwise looked to be fine. "Can either of you hear me?" "Yes," the oldest of the 2 answered. "Where's the rest of our family?" Marcus turned around to direct him to the carnage on the road, but the vehicle's slanted position hid the sad scene below. Triage dictated news of their mother would wait until they were both stabilized. "Do either of you hurt anywhere on your body?" "No," the boys said simultaneously. "I need you to stay here, okay? There's burning gas all over down there. Stay with your dad and keep him up and talking. Help is on the way." Marcus slid down the slope and ran to Beth and Jerry, who'd moved the younger boy to his brother's side by Margaret and Kyle. The pillow under the boy's head had already gone from white to crimson. There are 2 more boys and 1 adult in the vehicle. The boys are fine, but their father is critical. The small child began sobbing again.
"Keep talking to your brother, sweetheart," said Margaret.
"I'm going to find out if help is on the way," Marcus explained. "If I don't immediately come back, it means I went for it myself. Can I take your car? You blocked me in." "Definitely. The keys are in it," replied Beth. As Marcus rounded the blind spot, the crowd recoiled at the sight of his blood-covered body. "Has anyone gone for help?" No, stuttered a trembling young woman. Without another word, Marcus departed. Sitting in Beth's car, he had a literal life-or-death decision to make. Go up or down? The distance up the canyon was half as long. Ski Patrol would have more medical supplies, and he could call for help from the resort's phone. That was the best option. Marcus weaved around the stopped traffic, past the gawking crowd, and through the accident site, waving to the unexpected A-team that fate had created. The resort was up a narrow, pine-filled fork off the main canyon. What had been slush at lower altitude was now pure ice. Beth's car was older than his, and her bald tires caused him to slide uncontrollably across both lanes of the road. More than once the car came to a halt, then went backward. He doubted his directional decision, but after 15 minutes, he finally reached the resort and burst into the lobby. "Who's on ski patrol?" "Carl," responded a bellhop. "What the hell happened to you? Are you okay?" "Get him down here right now. Tell him to bring his med kit. There's been an accident in the canyon at the river bend below the North Fork Junction. 1 person is dead and 2 are critical." "I'll call an ambulance," offered the manager from behind the welcome desk. The next 5 minutes felt like an eternity as Marcus warmed himself in front of the lobby's fire, hypnotized by its dancing flames. His mind kept replaying the scene of the accident, and the way fire burned on the snow. He never imagined something like that was possible. Bouts of crying intermixed with anger at the tragedy he'd witnessed. His mental wandering was interrupted by Carl's arrival. "You rang?" "Can I explain on the way?" asked Marcus. "And can you drive?"
"Rock and roll,"
was all Carl replied.
Calibration ID number 3. Training data ends.
Marcus snapped back to reality in the Liberty Bell. He felt horrible. His stomach was tense, his heart was pounding, and his head ached. But he was ready for another sequence. "Glad to see you found yourself again," Brad said casually as Marcus descended to the floor. "Great work today. Let's call it a night." "We're done?" Marcus protested. "We identified your developmental stages. The exploratory phase is complete." "That was exponentially faster than I expected. You should be happy." Brad knew what Marcus was stewing over and appeared in person. "I know you're feeling a lot of confusing emotions, but being able to turn this off is a big part of what separates those who make it into the cohort from everyone else. Remind yourself that none of what happened was real. Like a dream, it's behind you. From now on, you'll be in stealth mode, so you won't have to cope with memories like this. Go relax for a few minutes. I'll meet you in my office." After cooling down in his locker, Marcus found Brad waiting on an office couch. He did a double take at the grandfather clock in the corner. How is it almost midnight? That felt like an hour, maybe. "Time is subjective in the sequences," Brad replied. "Within limits." "What limits?" "Your body has a good sense of its own rhythm. We can only trick it for so long." "Long like hours or long like years?" "Bioindividuality means the answer depends on the person. Some people immediately reject the experiment. For others, it'd take a lifetime to wake up. Go home and get some sleep." Brad opened the lab door. "Tomorrow will be very different. How about 3:30 p.m., right after your class?" Marcus agreed and set out, unsettled, into the darkness.